friends. Welcome back to the Old Fashioned On Purpose podcast. So today I have a rare treat. Well, if you're watching this, you're going to see it's a rare treat. If you're listening, I'm going to explain to you why I just said that. I have done very few in-person podcast interviews here on my homestead. Every once in a while it happens, but not very often. But today is one of those days. So I have Austin from Homesteady joining me in the flesh here in Wyoming today, and we get to do podcast together. So I just recorded one for his show, and then now we're recording one for mine. So this is super fun. So if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see both of us, which is kind of a treat. So
I don't know, maybe it's pretty hot.
We're all getting a little bit, there are flies here. I tell everybody I interview, I'm like, if I start waving, it's because I'm trying to get the fly off my nose.
You might hear it go by.
You can hear the fly go by. Yes. Yes. So it's a little warm in here. So I'm so excited to have you guys swing by. You guys have been on quite the tour.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So we left in the beginning of the summer for what we've been calling the off-grid challenge, the off-grid adventure. Our family has been wanting to build a new homestead. We've been homesteading for over a decade, but we wanted to kind of reset what we've been doing and go off-grid.
Yeah. And
for about 6 months, 9 months, we were planning and designing an off-grid homestead. And then I realized I was making a huge mistake. I was the gardener designing a garden who had never gardened, right? I was designing a market garden and I never did a raised bed. So we figured, you know what, let's go live off-grid, experience what off-grid life is really like. And then we can come back to this idea of living off-grid and designing a life off-grid with some experience. And this summer has been some experience.
I bet. I can only imagine. And I'm excited to hear what your conclusion was of, getting in there and actually doing the things.
Yeah.
But I know you're gonna reveal that when you put all of your adventures together in the series, right? On YouTube and a podcast.
Yep. So we're gonna be covering on the YouTube channel this whole off-grid series. You'll hear about it on the podcast. We've had the wonderful chance to interview lots of different people on this tour. We started with people living off-grid in Alaska. We went through, eventually we were in Alaska for the summer. We're driving home now, which is why we're here in Wyoming. Yeah. And it's a slow go because it's the whole family, all 8 of us, and the dog and the cats.
The cat, that's impressive.
Yes,
you brought the cats.
The cats was next level. Yes. We almost brought the goats, but that was just
it's harder to fit in a van.
It was the border.
Yeah.
Honestly, the border check, it was like we'd lose our goats at the border.
Yeah.
So, so we've been having really great conversations, and this is the last one. We got to talk to Jill today, and like she said, she'll be on in that series. So stay tuned.
Yes, you'll get the grand conclusion, which I'm very curious to hear what they decided. We have a really fun topic today. We were discussing like what we could chat about. We're going to be talking about homesteading myths, lies, and opinions. We're going to get into some controversial topics today. You and I might not even agree on some of this, so this will be fun. I love talking to people I don't agree with. I think it's so good. Whenever I do these episodes, like I was telling you before we hit record, I'm always nervous, and my audience generally loves them because I think everyone just wants to hear the truth and nothing but the truth. They just want to hear it put out on the table and just have frank discussions.
And Jill, you mentioned it just there, right? We might not agree because we have a different experience, right? So people listening, we have a list here to go through, and they might agree with half and think the other half is baloney.
Yeah.
But it's all our experiences. Just good to see things from someone else's angle, especially in the world of homesteading where we can kind of get in our corner and think our corner is the right corner.
Yeah. So I think it's really healthy in so many areas. So, but before we get into the juicy stuff, I was interested in something you said. You've been homesteading for over a decade.
Yeah.
You want to simplify. Yeah. So a lot of people are going, wait, you already achieved the ultimate. Yeah. What do you mean? What happened? Why are you simplifying again?
Great question. We started homesteading. My son is sitting in the studio right now, my oldest. He was on his way, and we decided we were switching from being a couple who lived in an apartment and ate Taco Bell to, well, we got a baby to think about now, so we got to do better. And it started very, very small scale. I learned we didn't have any land, so we couldn't raise animals. So I learned to hunt. It's the only thing I could figure out. And fish. So hunting and fishing to put meat in the freezer. That taught me how to butcher, right? So, well, now I can know how to butcher an animal. And we had a little apartment yard where Kay could put in a garden. So she put in a little garden. And the first year we got no deer and no tomatoes. It was a big failure. But as you know, the way these things work, we got better at the tomatoes, we got better with the deer, and we grew. And we got to the point where now, fast forward 13 years, and we have been running what is more like a farmstead. We peaked last year with 13 cattle, a bull and 12 girls. We had throughout the summer 5 feeder pigs, as well as some breeder pigs and all kinds of little piglets running around. We had goats and sheep and chickens and chicken tractors. Then we had the meat birds and the egg layers. Wow. We did a day in the life of video on our YouTube channel to show like how crazy our day was. And we looked back at that video and we're proud of it. Yeah. We built a huge thing. We do all our own meat. We don't buy meat from the supermarket anymore, right? We're proud of what we've done. But when you watch the day in the life of video, Kay and I, we give each other a kiss, walk into the barn, and we go like this.
Yeah.
I know you could probably relate with all the stuff you guys got going on. And we really wanted to build a life where we were together more. And we've done better than we had before we started homesteading. Sure. I worked in construction. I had to big commute. I was never home when my first 2 were little. I missed a lot of stuff. But now as things grow, we're very, very busy. They're very busy helping us, the kids. And so it's gotten to the point where we realize we need to reset, simplify again. And that means doing a better job of juggling, how and what we're actually doing and what things maybe we now let our community around us take care of. So
that's so good. And so important because I found that, January of this year, I felt that same thing in my businesses. Like I love my business. I've been working on my business for a decade and it was grow, expansion, hire. And I'm like, this is a behemoth and I am not liking this as much as I used to. Like it's too complicated. There's too many irons in the fire. And I just started purging. I closed down programs. I let some employees go. They were good employees, but I'm like, we're too big. Like there's too much. And it felt so good. I'm still in that mindset, but to have that self-awareness is sometimes hard, but it can feel really good once you lean into it.
We say it's like when you're homesteading, it's like pruning a tree.
Yes.
You have to. Yeah. Otherwise the fruit gets too big and the leaves break and you get disease.
Yeah.
So it either will happen by, as you've probably seen, if we grow too big too fast, there'll be failures.
Yes.
Right. Or we can self-prune. And we've had both.
Yeah.
So, and that's part of this list today. We're going to talk about a lot of failures, a lot of things that we've learned the hard way. And sometimes we've been smart enough to self-prune. Other times things have gone wrong.
Yeah. Good life lessons though, all the way around. Always. Okay. So should we get into the list?
Yeah.
Are you ready for this? All right. Okay. First one on the list, livestock breeds. They may not be as important as you have been told. Please divulge.
We have so we've been homesteading over a decade. We've had livestock since he was my son. I keep pointing to my son.
He's in here, we promise.
He's in here. He was 1 year old when we got his first batch of chickens.
Okay.
So 12 years we've had livestock and we've had chickens. We've had, I already said chickens, cows, sheep, goats, pigs. We even had camels for a short
my
while.
goodness.
You are camels.
Okay. That's
a new one?
Awesome. I don't know what to say. I've never had a camel guest before.
So we've had all kinds of livestock. Kay loves new animals. Since she was a little girl, it was her thing to get a new animal, try something new. And so we try pretty much everything. And we have tried many different breeds. And so what we tell people nowadays when people say like, oh, well, what's the best breed for, I want to get pigs or I want to get a cow, right? Family milk cow. We have a lot of experience with family milk cows. We have mini Jerseys. And we love our mini Jerseys. They're an amazing breed for your, small homestead where you can go out and milk it. It's not a high production. You can milk by hand. It's great. We talk a lot about them on our channel, mini Jerseys, and on our podcast. So someone might see our show and be like, I need a mini Jersey. It's the best breed for a homestead milk cow. I would even have said that in videos. That's the best breed.
Yeah.
But they may find is what we found when we got into mini Jerseys. They're high demand, low supply, they're expensive, they're hard to find. They could spend 5 years waiting for that mini Jersey, finally get it, or they could say, you know what, the breed's not that important.
Yeah.
Let me get a regular size Jersey and breed down. Or even better, the farmer down the road has whatever breed, and they're willing to help me. When we got into pigs, I had 0 pig experience. We wanted to try the heritage pigs, and all we could find was a farmer near us who was raising commercial Yorkshire landrace cross, big pink pigs. And, we were new and wow, we want to do the heritage thing, but well, these are here. Let's try it. That farmer, Tom Dexter, has become one of my biggest mentors because he was close to me. He wouldn't let me buy a pig from him until I came and toured his farm. He said, listen, you're going to do it all wrong. Come see my farm, see how I do it. So it didn't matter the breed. I was new, right?
Yeah.
How many times do we get into a new animal and wind up it gets sick because of a mistake we make? It could wind up dying. So in the beginning, don't worry about breed.
Yeah.
What we always tell people is find your closest farmer or homesteader who's willing to take you and actually help you. You can find a lot of people selling stuff on Craigslist, but someone who's willing to work with you, give you advice. I have called Tom Dexter. I've been homesteading now, we said 13-ish years. I've called him every year since I first called him.
Yeah.
Not for pigs anymore, but still for advice on pigs, on breeds, all kinds of things. So that we find is much more important than the specific breed.
I totally agree with that. I see a lot of new homesteaders getting hyper focused on the breeds.
Yes.
Like I like the heritage idea, the heritage breed idea.
Yeah.
We've had very few because Wyoming is close to nothing. So
No
one is here. And so anything special, it's far away. And so like we have pink pigs outside right now, big pink pigs. And I would love, every time we get them, I have this little like, this isn't very homesteadery enough because I don't have the heritage breeds and I'm not a real homesteader, but I'm like, I got them from the neighbor.
Yeah.
And I can't get the old spots anywhere near us. And I don't feel like driving 1,200 miles. And so it matters. Yeah, it matters. Yeah.
And not only think about your source, what is your local vet familiar with?
Right.
They weren't familiar with camels. I
am not surprised to hear that.
So just if it's what you can get locally that people understand, you can get help with, how much better than you might see a YouTuber who loves their IPP.
Yes.
You might see a YouTuber who loves their old spot, whatever it is. There's a million different things out there. And great. I love mini jerseys, but there's things more important.
Yeah, I agree. That was a good one. Okay. I like it. Okay. Number 2. Ooh, boy. We're diving in.
This is where the unsubscribe start.
Unsubscribes are starting. I can feel the emails coming now. Big ag and factory farms are not your enemy.
Not your enemy. Carefully worded here.
Yes.
We're real careful, being Kay, when we come up with our ideas and topics. We're really careful to word things right because people will pick in the comments and in the emails, right? They're not your enemy. The man I mentioned there, Tom Dexter.
Yeah.
If you were to go to his operation, he is a large-scale hog producer.
Yeah.
A lot of people would look at him as a factory farm. And there are certain practices that he does on his farm that factory farms do that people don't like.
Yeah.
And if I was the first day I went to Tom's and I saw how he, keeps his pigs, I could have judged him and said, this isn't a homesteader. This is a factory farmer. He's got all these sows and he's got the room with the sows and they're not on dirt. He keeps his piglets off the dirt on a raised floor. People don't like that.
Yeah.
When you talk to Tom, you'll learn this particular breed is really bad about crushing their babies in the mud. They'll get sick off of that. So what's best for his pigs on his farm is to elevate them and keep them in a heated room. Now, people might not like that. It's not natural, right? I want to see pigs out in the dirt. And that's fine if you want to do that in yours. But I had a pig get sick. This was a couple of years ago. I called Tom up. It was a little piglet. And I said, hey, Tom, this little pig has got diarrhea. I can't stop. I'm going to lose it. Now, this is, again, he could be considered a big ag factory farm guy. The first thing he said to do was not get drugs. It was not that, again, we'll talk about that too, but it wasn't go get a shot, pharmaceutical. It was go out back, take a 1 foot square of sod, lift it up with the dirt and the sod and everything and feed it to it.
Oh, interesting.
And then feed it a banana. Big ag, right?
Yeah,
Tom, conventional agriculture, big pink pigs. I did it because this guy's got years of experience.
Yeah.
I nothing else was working with this pig. Stopped the diarrhea. Now, it was a pig we ate, so the end of the story is we ate the pig, but that's the point.
Seems right to me. I don't know what the problem is.
Right?
I know.
So we saved him until butcher day.
Yes.
So it totally fixed the problem. Now, if you look at my farm and you look at Tom's farm, they look very different. We have now, since years later, done breeder pigs. We've done heritage pigs. We don't elevate them off the floor. We don't use the heated rooms. We find, but I've learned so much from that guy. And I could go through the list of interviews we've had on our podcast. We've interviewed Kirsten Bordner, who does the IPP pigs. She works in a grow facility for turkeys, factory farm, right? It's a big grow house where they put the turkeys all inside. She handles diseases and cross-contamination. When all the turkeys drop dead, she comes and figures out what's wrong. How much have I learned from Kirsten, right? Like, so these people who work, and you talk about this, we got a sneak peek at the book, Jill's book. You talk about this a little bit, how people wind up working in a factory farm or an big ag. Maybe it's the way their family's done it forever.
Yes.
Maybe it's just how they've learned to do things. There's so much knowledge, right?
Yeah.
They have so much more knowledge than us. Who knows more about pigs, me or Tom Dexter? Tom Dexter.
Yeah.
So we can learn so much. They're not our enemy.
Yeah.
Even if we don't like everything someone does, we can still learn a lot.
Yeah. I think that's so important. And I think as homesteaders, I know at least I think a lot of us have dipped into, because we get passionate, right? We've dipped into like all pasture, all regenerative, it's all bad. It's all industrial. And I have definitely been there. But as I've just kind of matured a little bit, and also what's that saying? It's hard to hate up close. Not that we're hating, but like once you get to know somebody in the other camp and you look eyeball to eyeball, it's like, oh, you're just a human.
Yeah.
And, we're living ranching country. So it's like old school ranches here, but these are people who raise cattle for feedlots, and we raise grass finished beef. A lot of these guys don't appreciate grass finished beef. Like they don't want to eat it, and they think it's a horrible idea. And so initially I was like, oh, let's fight. And then I'm like, no, they're really good people. And they're the ones who have mentored us as we've learned how to run cattle. And so, it's get to know these people. I do think, I'm not a fan of Monsanto. I really don't think they have a lot of good in mind, but there's a lot of humans, on the local level that are just really awesome. And like you said, have a ton of knowledge to share.
Yeah, I think it's, as you go through life, you see division is a tool to control people.
Yes.
Right? The more we can divide, here's a guy who's raising cows for people to enjoy, and here's another guy raising cows for people to enjoy. If they do it differently, they're still doing a lot of the same stuff.
Yeah.
So finding more learning from each other, even if we don't copy everything.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think open-minded is good. It's really healthy too.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it doesn't get as many hits on YouTube.
No, that's
it does
true.
Not. So division sells. It totally sells.
That's true.
Yeah. All right. Number 3. Here we go. Your homegrown food isn't always better than the grocery store.
Okay, again, worded carefully.
I can tell there's even asterisks around always.
Did I put it?
I
did put asterisks because, there's a reason we've been homesteading for 13 years. Raw milk usually is pretty delicious.
Yeah.
The pastured pork we raise in our backyards, the bacon we've cured, just fantastic, right? Yeah. And we, by nature, we have YouTube channels and podcasts, and we tell people about our products, and usually we like to share the wins, right? And we're also, I know, Jill, you're good about sharing the realities. We try to, on our channel, be very open and honest. There are a ton of times you go through a ton of work, you spend a lot of money. I can think back to the most problems we've had have come from either dairy endeavors, usually with goats, or chickens. We've raised Cornish cross chickens, Red Ranger chickens, heritage chickens. We have seen, you ever seen green meat disease?
No.
So you finish this big fat bird, right? You spent 8 weeks dragging him around your pasture, sweating it out, bringing him water, bringing him food, doing it, the Salatin way and the tractors and, your John Siskovich chicken tractors, and you're feeling like such a homesteader. Butcher day comes and you get them all packaged and sealed. You're so proud. And then you go in your kitchen, you cut into that and you open it. It's green. Like green. And you're thinking, okay, this is rotten. This is spoiled. Yeah. But then the next one's green. Oh. And the green meat disease. I should have wrote this in my notes. It's something like green meat disease. Basically, it's something to do with a weird oxygen issue. I don't know the science behind it, but your chicken meat turns green. Yeah. Do you want to sell that to your customers? Do you want to serve that to your family? Technically, they say it's edible.
It doesn't look great.
Doesn't look great.
No.
We've raised chicken tractor chickens that have been so tough. Yeah. like, all right, well, stick them in the crock pot for 24 hours and we'll eat it.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
It's so much work. And
Yeah.
then on the dairy side, dairy goats, weird tasting milk,
Yep.
funny issues with the flavor. Now, it's not all that, right? We have our wins. But before you get into like, you know what, I'm going to grow all this and it's going to be amazing, you have to know there's a lot of failure.
Yes. Yes.
And a lot of times the quality or the flavor will not match either what you're used to, like you mentioned with the grass-fed
Yep.
beef and the feedlot finished beef. It won't either be what you're used to, or it'll just be outright worse.
Yeah, that's so good. It's so good. Because every once in a while, and I have totally said this, but I'll have people come up and go, well, homegrown food always tastes better. And I'm kind of thinking, you haven't really grown a lot of food. Because like, it's not a fun thing to admit. Because I am a huge evangelist of homegrown food, obviously. Right? But I have cheese in the house right now, homemade cheese.
Oh, yes.
That it's okay. It's edible.
Yeah.
But like my family is like, if my husband will, like, it's in there, my husband will go to the store and get a block of cheddar and we'll go ahead and eat the cheddar from the store before we go. We only go back to the homemade one if it's like, okay, there's no cheese in the house. So we have to use this one.
I love that you mentioned cheese, because we were talking on the way here in case, like, how many wheels of cheese have I made? Or yogurt. Yeah. The kids won't touch it. Yes. They'll eat the Greek full fat from the supermarket. Yep. They love that with a little honey on it. Yeah. They don't touch it. Went too long. It went too short. It's too grainy. It's too sour. Something in the air. Yes. Dairy is such an art. Hard. It is so hard. I love it, but it's so hard. Yep. Yeah. What are some other ones? Yeah, I've had a lot of those. I had a big shock when I first started making sourdough bread back in the day. I was just like, it's sourdough. I went to 100% whole wheat right away because I'm hardcore like that. And I'd be like, look at honey, I have homemade bread for supper. And it was like, it would choke you going down. But yeah. And I was like, I didn't want to admit it, but it's really not better. It's actually worse. Yes. Right. Yeah. Now I can actually make bread that's better than the store, but it took me a long time. Yeah. We did a batch of bacon. This was last year. I've been homesteading 12 years here, right? I got some. We did a batch of bacon. We oversalted it. It was inedible. Yeah. We had to serve it, slice it, and bacon. We like literally raised the breed. We had breeder pigs, got the little ones, raised them up on the pasture, the whole thing, butchered it ourselves, hung it, put in the house on the right temperatures, cut it, brined it, every single step. You were invested in that bacon. There's no reason for me to tell anybody this is awful bacon. This is like, I look beautiful on Instagram. Yes. It was gross. We had to re-brine it in just plain water to suck out some of the salt, and then serve it only on like BLTs, because the tomato and lettuce would forgive the saltiness of the bacon. Yeah. So you got to be ready for that reality. Sometimes you really mess up, and sometimes it's just not what you like. Yeah. What do you have any, or how do you handle that when you have such like bacon disappointments, big disappointment? Do you have any words you tell yourself when you're hitting those roadblocks? Chicken's got to eat. Yeah. Right. Yeah, that's true. That is the one good thing. There's always something that will eat the failures. That is actually really one of the best ways. You just having chicken, and you talk about that in your book, right? Like just having chickens makes every failure. Yeah. Hey, you know what? The cheese, a lot of protein. Chickens can have some cheese. Having pigs has been awesome for failures. Yes. Nothing, and this is something, when you have a homestead with these particular things, chickens and pigs, really nothing goes to waste, but your time invested in a high quality product. Yeah. You could say, well, we learned from it and we're sharing it with others. So there's value there too. Yeah. But we talked about it in the episode we just recorded for our show. You talked about failure. Failure is a thing, and you're going to learn from it, and you'll learn good from it. So, that'll stick with us. We will not over brine bacon again. Exactly. Yeah. That was one time and one time only. That's it. Yeah. We watch that clock now. Yes. Yeah. Hey friend, I'm interrupting this episode for just a second to give a shout out to our sponsor, Genuine Beef. Now, this is actually my beef company, the one that my husband and I started a number of years ago to bring our grass-finished Wyoming beef straight to your doorstep. And I know that whenever we start to shift into this fall and winter season, I get the very primal urge to stock up on food. And I know many of you feel that same way. So we have put together a freezer filler special to help you do just that.
you're going to get 4 of our most popular beef roasts, the ones that are great for crock pots and those cozy winter meals, as well as 3 pounds of our 90-10 ground beef. We're going to put it all in a bundle and give it to you for 15% off while supplies last. Now, we can ship this to anywhere in the continental US. We do second day air. We put a lot of dry ice in there, so it'll get to your doorstep safe and sound. And if you want to grab a box or 2 or 3, head on over to theprairiehomestead.com/freezer to grab your bundle. And I'll go ahead and drop that link in the show notes too. Now, back to our episode. Yes, good lessons, even though sometimes they're just real hard.
Heartbreak.
So heartbreak. All right. I love number 4. You won't save money. That's breaking some hearts right now. That is breaking some hearts.
We got into homesteading. Talked about it a little at the beginning, right? We had a baby boy. We wanted to feed him better. The thing I didn't mention was, and we could not afford to buy better quality food.
Yes, that was same. Yeah, right? Couldn't afford it. Yeah.
We couldn't afford. We would go to the farmer's market, and I know there's tricks, and you share a lot in the book about how to, make more from less and from different cuts. But at the time, we couldn't figure it out. We couldn't do it. Well, we can't do this, right? So we'll do it ourselves. We'll save money. We'll do it ourselves. And what we have learned after doing it now this long and with all the different livestock is, generally speaking, what will happen is you will spend way more than you would at the supermarket for sure.
Yeah.
If you're really good and you get your systems really well, you can usually match your farmer's market, maybe do a little better. But people who sell stuff at farmer's markets aren't always great with their pricing, and they're probably losing money.
We have found that with beef.
Yeah.
And it's hard on the people who are actually trying to make money and watching their margins. And I'm looking at these, $2 a pound ground beef sales go by on Facebook. I'm like, you're losing money.
Yeah.
You can't do that.
Farm fresh eggs.
Yes. Yeah.
When we moved to Pennsylvania, people were selling them for $2 a dozen.
Oh,
there's no way they're making money.
Yeah.
But they're doing it. So you would do better to just buy a person selling, support them.
Ish,
I guess. You're not really helping them.
Yeah.
But we did a breakdown, a video on our YouTube channel where we broke down what we spent on our family milk cow every week. Every week she cost, and this was kind of an average milk because we got a lot of cows and stuff, but we tried to do an average, about $50 a week for a family milk cow. Now, what we said in that video was, if you're a big consumer of dairy, you have a big family, and you drink a lot of milk, because then with cheese making, as we just talked about, you can make the cheese. Is it the cheese your family's used to?
Yeah.
That's more time, more equipment, right? So if you drink a lot of milk, like more than $50 a week, then go for it if you're trying to save money.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're probably not going to save money. And that's a heartbreak for a lot of people. But now you can save on the better quality product, right? It can be, if you're buying it at the farmer's market, you can save there. But overall, if you're just looking to save money, there's better ways than raising animals.
Okay. So then maybe people are asking or wondering, why do it?
Why do it? Oh man.
It's a big question. I know.
Why did we keep going, right? After, after we got so far along, why do we keep going? The kids is a big one, right?
Yeah.
Knowing, because we have 6 kids. So knowing that I can feed them, knowing that we have a good quality product. We went through, this is interesting in our story. Why do we have the camels? One of my youngest son had really bad allergies. And we had to watch everything he ate. If it was chicken, was the chicken fed corn? Was it fed soy? Just to give you an idea, birth or, they track kids' weights, percentile. You're in the first percentile, you're in the 100th percentile for weight. He was his whole first few years of his life in the 10 and under, as far down as scary.
Yeah.
So it was, we got a camel because camel milk is super hypoallergenic.
Interesting.
Definitely don't save $1 on
No. I don't imagine you save no camel money saving.
One of the most expensive endeavors we've ever done. But to know that we could have it even through the pandemic for him.
Yes.
So a lot of it is that. And don't get me wrong, there's still, and you guys probably have seen this too, there are a few things we do we can save money on.
Yep.
If you love grass-fed lamb and you got a lot of grass out there, our grass, we like to, when we buy lamb back home, it's like 15 to 20 bucks per pound. We can get bummers from our family members across the fence. Bummers are the lambs that aren't attached. They don't want to bottle feed. So we get a couple bummers for basically nothing and raise them out on grass and butcher them. So yeah, we're saving them.
Yes.
You can find, everybody's situation might have one or two things, but net positive, it's much more for the security, knowing where our food comes from. It's a good thing. We enjoy the lifestyle.
Yeah.
And, you're building wealth. Your herd of cows, you guys got a nice herd of cows.
Yeah.
There's wealth there. You might not save a ton of money,
but
when we sell a couple cows, there's something there. It's you might have a stock portfolio and a livestock portfolio. So there are advantages to it. Just not saving money very much.
Yeah, I know. It's just not the money part. Yeah. And I think it's such a fascinating concept because everyone comes in it. I think, or not everyone, I'd say 90% of people come to homesteading for the food, whether they just want to get rid of chemicals or they think they're going to save money. And what I see happening is that the people who are going to stick with it realize real quick, food is cool.
Yes.
And food is important, but I'm staying for those deeper benefits, the emotional health, making sure my kids know where their food comes from, work ethic, having control, having food security. So I think you have to latch onto those sooner versus later if you're going to stick in the lifestyle.
Yes.
Yeah. It matters. Yeah. Okay. That was a good one. Number 5. This is my language right here. We're not fighting so far. So I don't know. This is too easy.
Maybe in the comments, though.
Maybe in the comments. I mean, everyone's gonna be disappointed we're not having a knockdown drag out. Okay. You don't have to go to the extreme and do everything to have a successful or enjoyable homestead.
We, during that year or two during the pandemic, my son's allergies were really, really bad. I mentioned we had to watch what our chickens were eating.
Yes.
Right.
That's intense.
Oh,
that's intense.
Yeah. So we were raising Cornish cross chickens in chicken tractors out on pasture, but we needed to make sure that his the chicken's feed didn't have corn or soy. So that's really
real
hard,
real
right?
hard. Yeah.
Really hard to find both. Usually you can find one that's corn or soy.
Yeah.
We couldn't have corn or soy, either of them. So we thought, you know what? We've been at this for a long time. We know what we're doing. We'll make our own feed. We'll make our own chicken feed for the broilers. So we did. And we even worked with someone who did feed on their own. They did custom feeds. And they knew a lot, but they had never done broiler chicken feeds. So we put together this custom feed from start to finish. We fed it to our broilers and we watched 200 birds, half of them died. Just like,
no way.
And it was the weirdest thing because it looked like a disease.
Yeah.
They started getting funny with how they would walk and they would start like getting dizzy and fall over and then dead. Yeah. And it was a couple and then a couple more and then a couple more. And then all of a sudden like catastrophic loss.
Yeah.
And I'm calling, do I have, bird flu? Do I have, what's going on here? It was the feed. We did it wrong. They didn't have enough. And I don't remember now because I don't make my own feed anymore. But it was something about the amount of energy they could get from the carbohydrate just wasn't there.
Yeah.
And where you could get away with it with maybe a heritage hen that's running around outside.
Sure. The
broiler chickens grow big and fast and they need more.
Yeah.
So the moral of the story was we tried to do everything just on that chicken and it was a big, big failure.
Yeah.
There are people who are out there making feeds. Support them. Find a good quality feed. Find something you like. You don't have to go buy. If you don't want to, you don't have to go to your big boxes and buy that feed. We found really good local sources who make really nice feeds. Whether it's feed butchers. Sometimes, do you see this, Jill? People sometimes get funny about using a butcher in the homestead world.
Totally.
They're going to steal my meat.
Yeah.
I could, it's an awful place for my animals to be. We have partnered with some butchers over the years who are, first off, taught me so much about growing. Our best butcher, well, I don't want to say best because we've worked with a few, but one of the
We're not playing favorites here.
We'll edit that out.
Yeah.
But he was just a fantastic butcher. He had raised so much livestock. So he not only knew how to raise the animals, but he knew how to raise them for the best end product to eat. He taught me what to feed pigs. He taught me how to feed pigs. He taught me what breeds are better for what things. And He never stole any of my bacon.
Yeah, I don't think we've ever had that happen.
Right.
Or people are like, they're going to mix it up. And I'm like, the butchers, I mean, unless they're really shady, but I mean, I know it could happen.
It can We've had that happen from one I never used again.
Yeah.
So you got to, like anything in life, find your partner, right?
Yeah.
Find a good, but overall, we've had wonderful experiences with butchers.
Yeah.
I'm a big proponent of learning to butcher. If you want to save money, that's a great way to do it. But don't be afraid to use a butcher. They're awesome. They're craftsmen that are going to elevate your product, do better than you will. I'm a hobby butcher. I like to do it as a hobby. And I've done every animal we've raised, at least a couple of them. But when we have a big batch, especially for customers, it's going to a butcher. Yeah. Because they're just there to make our life a little easier.
We had that same revelation. We had initially, it was because I can be pretty hardcore. Like I have matured into more gray area personality, but I am naturally very black and white and dogmatic, which I've really tried to grow out of that. But initially homesteading, it was like, we have to butcher ourselves because it's not real if it's not cutting it up. And so we would cut up several steers and several hogs. And I'm glad we did it. Yeah. It was good. And we still butcher our own chickens. But man, we have a butcher down the road who's a good friend. Like he's 3 miles down the road. Yeah. Like it's not a traumatic haul for the animals. Right. And when we would butcher it ourselves, we could kind of get it done. But it was like, I never knew the cuts because it would be like roast, steak. I don't know what this is. And I the tenderloin would be labeled the same as the, pork chop. I had no idea. And it was all the product wasn't as enjoyable. And with the cattle, we couldn't hang them. Because we didn't have the the temperature is not consistent. So we would just cut them up, hang them for a night, and then wrap them. And I mean, that's chewy. That's chewy.
Other things you can get away with that, but cattle that's a rough one.
So I'm like, you know what? I'm very happy to pay someone who knows his cuts. He cuts it well, and it's labeled as
Isn't that so nice?
So nice. I know.
I can't tell you how many times Kay has pulled out of our chest freezer a thing and been like, What
is it?
What? And now I'm like, kids, what do you, because they help. What do you think, kids? It's like we place bets.
June does, right? Well, my sister does do the labeling.
Yes. So you blame her?
Just blame her. I mean, that's fair. That's fair. But, I think that's such a good example because it's okay to admit that you're not doing something, like someone else can do it better. Yeah. And then when you do find the thing that you do better, sink into that. Like we hired someone to butcher our chickens once. He didn't do a good job. Yeah. Like it just wasn't as good. So I'm like, you know what? We have the setup. I'm really happy to lean into that and become more efficient. So I think you just have to pick and choose.
And I like that advice because then you'll get more from what you're doing. If you're trying to do everything, even the things you're good at, you'll do worse. Yes. Because you're doing everything.
Stressed out.
You're right. You're maxed out. So if you're trying to make the feed, grow the feed, process it, raise the animal, butcher it, you're going to mess up a lot. Yeah. Whereas if you say, hey, I'm really good at working with livestock, let somebody else grow the grains that we feed them or grow the whatever. Or, hey, I love rotationally grazing, on grass, on pasture. We'll do that. Yeah. Lean into that and do what you're good at. Support your local butcher, form that community, form that web. Because that ultimately, a lot of us want to be self-sufficient. You talk about this in your book. If you're doing everything and you twist your ankle, right? But if you got a network, a community like you talked about forming and investing in, they'll be there when you need them too. Yeah. We've had a few emergencies where we had to call up the butcher and say, hey, we need a hand. And
and that's your network is so valuable when you build that. It's such a valuable thing. And if we look at, historically, even out here, like we're out in the wide open prairie, the homesteads are far between. Like we'll be out gathering cattle on horseback and you'll ride for miles before you'll see one little house. Yeah. And then you'll ride for miles and see another little house. But they still were connected. And if you look at their writings historically, they were still building houses close-ish to each other. And they would get together at the Grange halls and at the schools. There was little schools everywhere and little post offices everywhere. And they were still neighboring, is what we call it out here. They were still neighboring. And so we might exalt them as like the pioneers and they were self-sufficient. I think they were more community sufficient than we are now as modern homesteaders, where we have this idea that we have to do it DIY, all the things. So Yep. And the Amish are another example. They live in communities for a reason.
We're surrounded by
because you're where you live. Yeah.
And we actually have friends, families who are Mennonites. More Mennonites in our area. It is huge communities. Yes. Yeah, they do a lot of stuff themselves. They're a huge neighborhoods of community.
Yeah.
So it's all, and they're all helping. One of them's butchering, one of them's smoking the meat, one of them has a store, one of them's out in the field. So it's all about just working together.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an underrated part, I think, of the
Yes,
homestead
yes.
world, especially online. It's easy to get into that self-sufficiency trap.
Everything. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Okay. Moving on to number 6. Replicating the natural world won't mean there will be problems.
Oh,
Let me rephrase that. Replicating the natural world won't mean that there won't be problems. We call this the natural myth. So what's the natural myth?
We talk about this on our channel from time to time,
Yeah.
the natural myth. And this is one that we get a lot of comments for. We were driving, so we talked about we're in Alaska for the summer, and now we were driving from Alaska through British Columbia and the Yukon, British Columbia, down into the States. Now we're all the way here in Wyoming, going through state parks. We were just in Yellowstone a couple days ago.
Yeah.
Got to see Yellowstone.
Yeah.
And while in Yellowstone, we got to see some of the bighorn sheep, right, running around Yellowstone. Yeah. And my kids are all farm kids. My oldest daughter has her own goats. First thing she said, they come tumbling down the hill. Wow, they look really healthy. Those bighorn sheep. And we were all like gazing. Look at those hindquarters on that one. They look healthy. Shiny coats. Kay right away noticed the hoofs. Boy, their hoofs are beautiful. No one's out there trimming their hoofs.
Yeah.
No one's out there deworming them. No one's giving them any shots, any medication.
Yeah.
Look at this beautiful creature in its natural habitat. It is the healthiest sheep we've seen maybe ever.
Yeah.
Right? If we just do what they do on our homesteads, right? You don't need to give them shots. You don't need to give them medication. Just mimic nature. You shouldn't have to worry about their hoofs as long as they're out on the dirt and on the rocks. You hear people say stuff like
yes.
that. The difference is you don't own a state park.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, no, you don't.
You don't have, maybe you do. I don't know.
I don't own a state park.
You don't have that much land. Yeah. And we were just researching because this piqued our interest. Look at how healthy they look. The mortality rate of the lambs. They did a study. They radio colored. They caught up a bunch of bighorn sheep lambs. 95% mortality.
No way.
Would your beef business be able to operate with a 95%?
No. Yeah.
Not only could you not handle that financially, emotionally.
Yes.
If every baby you saw on this homestead, if 9 out of 10 died. Now, 30% was because of predation. So we put up our fences and we get rid of that.
Yeah.
It's still like 60, even if we're generous, say 50%. Every other one is culled by nature. Yeah. Nature is a hard farmer. Yeah. She makes if your feet are bad, if you're bad mother traits, she culls you. Yeah. 50% cull rate. I don't have the heart to cull my herds at 50%. No. I don't have the heart to watch a sick animal. This was interesting. The 60% mortality after you took away predation was mostly pneumonia. And this is where we base this whole principle of the natural myth. There are some people out there, and if they want to do this on their homestead, I will not argue. Hey, it's your homestead. Yeah. You do what you want. They don't want to use pharmaceuticals. Yes. Right? Yeah. We've had pigs get pneumonia. We've had our cows get pneumonia. Yeah. Our precious mini Jersey cattle have had pneumonia. Yeah. We've had in the past instances of this. These bighorn sheep, 50 to 60% mortality, mostly pneumonia. Now you can give them a shot, a pharmaceutical, and it will. I've never lost an animal that we've treated with a pharmaceutical to pneumonia. Yeah. Never. Or you can mimic nature, but you have to be ready to accept a 50, 60% death rate for certain things. So although we try to honor the natural practices, right? We rotationally graze. Yes. Right? We try to move things on fresh grass as much as possible. We try to make sure that our goats have, gravel and rocks to jump around on. We're also going to trim their hoofs. Yep. We try to prevent medical problems. We don't want to depend on pharmaceuticals. We've seen with when you go to goats, the world of worms. Oh man, that's worm problem. If you don't avoid it, we got to talk to last year, the author of Raising Goats Naturally. Oh yeah. And she talked about like the best thing you can do for worms is avoid it. And that's all in how you manage. And that's mimicking nature. Sure. But at the end of the day, you will face a problem. Something will go wrong. You'll have that. And if you're not willing to take advantage of, like you talk about in your book, some technology, some advances, then you just have to be ready to handle a much higher mortality rate than I could emotionally.
Yeah. This is such a good conversation. And I've seen it so many times in the homestead world where we get so hung up on the natural, like the dogma of the natural order. And we have to remember we are still humans interfering. And I mean, there's only a point. Like you said, you can't own a state park.
Yeah.
And so like, I think about milk cows a lot. There's a lot of times I see homesteader milk cows, and obviously milk breeds are skinnier than a beef breed. So you have to kind of calibrate your eyeballs. But you can get so hung up on like, I want to only grass feed my milk cow. Well, when it works, it's great. I would prefer my milk be from a grass-fed animal exclusively. But some of those mamas can't do that, or the grass isn't right because you're putting them on pasture that maybe they wouldn't have chosen naturally. Or you're putting 2 calves on them, which nature probably maybe wouldn't have done, or we're pushing production like maybe nature wouldn't have done. And so when we refuse to follow up our own actions with some intervention, I think that can get us in hot water real fast. So I prefer not to feed grain to my milk cow, but if my milk cow is skinny and her body condition is poor, I will give her grain because I got to treat her right for the position I put her in.
That's a great example. We get that a lot in our channel because we have some that we can grass feed.
Yeah.
Our mini Jerseys, some of them come from the New Zealand genetics and they're just great. And we're fortunate. We have like acres and acres of Pennsylvania pasture.
Yes.
But when we got a Guernsey a couple of years ago, we had to supplement her.
Yep.
And it would be cruel to take an animal that's been developed on that and remove it.
Yes.
It would be cruel to her. So, in my opinion. So if people want to make these other choices, again, the minute I cross the border into your homestead, you want to do things, it's your homestead. I believe we all should be able to choose on our own homesteads. But that's why we say, you just have to be prepared. If you want to just mimic nature, she culls a lot of animals.
Yeah. That's such great advice. Such great advice. And the pharmaceuticals is another one, I think. And I think sometimes, obviously I'm not a fan of big pharma in my family's diet or my animals' diet. And I think we can get so hung up on pushing back against that. I don't agree with feeding animals maintenance antibiotics. I don't believe in medicated feed all the time. But that doesn't mean that sometimes they need a shot of penicillin. And, mastitis is one. We don't have it a lot, but every once in a while we'll battle it. We'll try to do some natural stuff. And if it's not working, I'm like, I'm not going to ruin her udder on principle. So I'm not afraid to do that every once in a while, which that's pretty controversial. Sometimes.
For us to admit, and we, on our channel, we try, because people will deal with it, right?
Yeah.
Try to be very open with, hey, we try to keep our goats from getting worms.
Yeah.
And we've done in the past, we've made mistakes. We've learned from it. We've lost goats to problems.
Yeah.
We've learned from it. But if you are just so dogmatic, you won't consider it as a tool to be used. It's not the solution. Trust me. I feel very similar about these bigger corporations, how they make money. I have no love there.
Nope.
But if my cow, who I do have love for, needs a shot of penicillin, they're not making much off that penicillin shot.
Exactly. And I'm like, that came from, wasn't it mold? It's a natural, like, the psyllins are natural. So I'm like, I know it's the factory version, but I'm like, it's in nature. There's some antibiotic properties in different natural things. So I'm like, I'm okay with that. Within reason. We're not creating super bugs here. Within reason.
Yes.
I'm good with it.
Super bugs coming from our home.
Nope. I think we're safe. Free from super bugs this year. So, all right. This has been so fun. We have one question left. And I think this is a great way to wrap this up. Myth number 7, or maybe not a myth, but a fact. Homesteading won't solve all your problems, but it's still an awesome life to live, and it's worth it.
Yeah. I know from being in the content side of the business, right? We've had a podcast a long time, YouTube channel for a long time. You get the comments, you guys are living my dream.
I get that a lot.
Right?
Yeah.
You're living my dream. And I totally get what they're saying. Like, I understand it. And I love hearing, people appreciate what we're doing, all that, right? Yeah. But it is not a dream when you're in it, right?
Yeah.
It's a reality.
Yes.
When you're actually there, it's no longer a dream. There's the cold you talked about in your book, the day you had to, probably not the only day you had to dig out the snow this high to get to the barn. There's a video where we're working on we have a waterer for our cows that freezes up in the winter. It's a frost-free waterer, but
Yep.
I did something wrong and it freezes. And I'm out there in the coldest day of the year, fingers freezing and water falling down my back and in my coat, trying to fix this thing,
Yeah.
and with the torch on it to try to heat it. Quick, put it back in the ground so it doesn't freeze again.
Yeah.
There are some of the worst, saddest days of my life are direct results of homesteading.
Yes.
One day I can easily remember I felt at my lowest. We lost a sow with piglets. We changed our water setup, new infrastructure.
Yeah.
And changing infrastructure, there was a problem in it we didn't realize.
Yeah.
Pigs, when they run out of water, very quickly, whereas another animal, cows can run out of water, they get it from the grass. They still need, it's a problem, but like, it's not as pigs, they get what's called salt poisoning, kills them real quick. And we had to watch this sow caring for all these little piglets. Just by the time we realized, wait, something's off with her. What's wrong? Oh no, the water's not working. She died.
Yeah.
That was one of the worst days of my, and I don't want to be overly dramatic. Like, I've been fortunate. I don't have a lot of loved ones who've died.
Yeah.
Right. But as far as like everyday life and work and what we do, that is one of the worst days I've had in my life.
Yeah.
I just felt so bad because it was 100% my fault.
Yeah.
It could have 100% been avoided. You'll have days because of homesteading where you go through that.
Yes.
But why do we do it, right? When you zoom out, I can remember those days because they're hard and they're bad, but it's the best life right now that I can give to my family and my kids.
Yeah.
So I feel like when you follow our channels, when you read our books or watch our videos or listen to our podcasts, we love it. You obviously love this way of life since you were little. I love this way of life, but you have to be ready. If you're going to jump in, it's not you. It will bring you a new, Kay and me always say, everyone's life has problems, so you choose your problems.
Amen. Yeah. Amen. Pick your problems.
Right?
Yep.
And these are the problems we pick.
Yeah. So good. I've had those days as well, the hard days. We lost a calf this year. It was my fault. And everyone online was like, it's fine. I'm like, it's not fine.
Yeah.
I made a huge mistake. I should have put it in the barn and I didn't think it would rain, and it rained, and she was a day old, and the beef cow calves would have been fine. And she was a little more delicate. She was a brown Swiss, and she's this big, beautiful heifer, and came out and she was beautiful, like healthy. And I came out that morning. I had this little thought when I went to bed, maybe you should go throw in the barn. And I'm like, it's not going to rain. It's fine. It's Wyoming. It doesn't rain here. It rained. And I think she just got chilled enough. And I felt so bad. I was like, I can't even describe how bad I felt, because it's one thing to have an animal die. It's another thing when you caused it, in essence.
Right.
And I was like, you idiot, you knew better. But yeah, it's choosing your heart, and you have to choose. You choose your heart. If I was if I hadn't listened to this calling and hadn't chased this dream, I think I would be really miserable, fitting into the prescribed path that someone else told me to live. So I'm like, I could choose that and be that miserable. And this really isn't miserable. There's just bad days sometimes. So
those days, I remember that day wanting to quit. And this was, I wasn't a brand new homesteader. This was years in. Being like, no, I'm done.
Yeah.
Usually there's been, I think over our decade plus, probably 3 or 4 days, I've said, no, we're done.
Yes.
And here we are. We're still.
Yeah, and you're still doing it. Yeah. It's okay to quit as long as you start again the next day.
Exactly.
So I think I would love to see more people, especially as homesteading picks up speed online. And there's a lot of romanticization of it, which isn't all bad. Sometimes it makes me a little annoyed, when it's all white and aprons and linen dresses. But I'd love to see people move past that stage of romantic starry-eyed.
Yeah.
Because we all go through that, and that's fine. And just lean into it. Like, those days when you're out fixing the water and it's cold, that's your life. That's real, and that's okay. And it's okay. That's just part of the gig.
Yep.
Just as much as the days when you have brand new baby goats or the eggs look especially clean and beautiful in the basket. And I think as long as we can just accept both, not to say there's some days that we just wish didn't happen.
Yes.
But I think that's where the real magic is.
Yes.
When we can stop chasing just the romance and just lean into just the messiness of it. I found that's where I find the most fulfillment ultimately.
Yeah. And I think the bulk of the audience, the bulk of the fans, people watching and who are dreamers, I think most of them appreciate that.
I think so too.
You'll get, I think from doing YouTube a long time, the negative comments sometimes it makes you not want to be honest about the hard stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Those are hard to share a failure that results in an animal's death. And we've on our channel over the years shared a lot of big ones.
Yeah.
And you get some awful comments.
Yes.
That just like add to the injury. For every 100 people telling you it's okay, you guys do a great job, that one awful one you get sticks with you.
Yep.
But you'd be doing a disservice to, and that's why it's on the list today, to the people who you're inspiring, not telling them, listen, there are really hard days.
Yeah.
So.
And that's okay. It's normal.
Yes.
It's normal.
Everyone has hard days.
Yeah.
Like, right? Everyone, if we were doing something else, there'd be a hard day. And we just chose cows and pigs and frozen waters and worms.
Yes, and worms. all the beautiful things. So put that on Instagram. So, oh my goodness, this has been the best. I cannot wait to get the feedback from this. I think it's actually, I don't think we'll have many bad emails. I think we're gonna have mostly positive stuff.
Not a lot of
and it's okay. If somebody wants to be mad, you can be mad. It's all right. But yeah, where can people follow along? I know, okay, Homesteady Instagram, right? Just at Homesteady.
Actually, Instagram's like the last thing we do. Let me see. I don't even know it off the top of my head. I think it's Homesteady Show. Let me pull up
Homesteady Show. Okay.
I read in a book recently I should delete these apps off my phone. So
yes, that book does say it's hard to delete Instagram though.
Yes. Okay, so on Instagram we are, let's see here, Homesteady Show.
Homesteady Show.
Pretty much what I always tell people is if you Google Homesteady, if you like YouTube videos, we got a bunch of YouTube videos, you'll find us. If you like podcasts, we got a lot of podcasts. If you like following stuff on Instagram or Facebook, we're very little on Facebook, but basically Google Homesteady.
Okay.
You'll find what we're up to. We have been very quiet over the summer because we were doing the off-grid challenge. So it will look like we have stopped.
Yeah, but you haven't.
We haven't. We got so much good stuff coming, including the awesome episode we just recorded with you, Jill. The whole off-grid challenge, all the stuff we went through, some real hard times there, some real honest, like, we don't like this today, and a lot of learnings that's coming out. So if you check out our podcast, our videos, or whatever, we're coming back soon.
Awesome.
We're in Wyoming. We're making our way back to Pennsylvania, and I'll start editing again once we're back on the grid. So.
Yeah, I can't wait to get your grand revelation of what you thought after the year. I also think it's cool you actually kind of went off grid while you were doing the off grid challenge.
Yes.
Like that's neat. You went dark because that's a little more authentic.
I wasn't going to. I even edited one video. And it was so hard. And what ultimately we realized is I'm like missing out on, we're in Alaska with all my kids and my wife are in Alaska. My son's wearing a halibut fishing shirt. We went halibut fishing.
Nice.
So instead of editing, I can edit when I get home, you know, like, and I got a lot of
You got a lot of edit. I bet you do. I bet you do.
So we enjoyed it. We went dark for a while. We'll be back probably starting to release content pretty soon. So
okay, good.
It's coming.
So go check that out, guys. It's going to be really good. I think you're really going to enjoy it. So thank you for coming here. Like actually coming here is so fun.
Get to see the farm.
Yeah, way more just enjoyable to have a conversation face to face. The old fashioned way.
Zoom,
I also hate Zoom.
Yes.
I also hate Zoom. I do use it a lot, but I hate Zoom. So yeah. Alrighty. So everybody go follow Austin and his family and all their adventures. Good stuff. As you heard, like he's been around the block. Been there, done that. He knows this world inside and out. Homesteady on YouTube, Homesteady Show on Instagram, and then the Homesteady podcast. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you have any other myths you would like to hear discussed on this show, send them over on Instagram or email or however you want to contact me. And that's it for today. So thanks again.
Thanks for having me, Jill.
And we'll catch up on the next episode of the Old Fashioned on Purpose podcast.